I'm Sal Greco, and you're watching and listening to The Sal Greco Show. I hope everybody had a safe, happy, and healthy Thanksgiving. And with that, it is now the holiday season. We are now full steam ahead to Christmas and, of course, the new year. And a lot has also taken place in the last couple of days. I saw over the weekend the fourth police commissioner in the last 3 years. That's Jessica Tisch, the billionaire police commissioner. She went to the National Action Network, which is that's the Reverend Al Sharpton, very good friends of Eric Adams. And essentially, she was spewing lies yet again, that crime was down. Meanwhile, there was a crime wave that occurred in the last week. And also, if you go on my friend's X account, Sam Antar, at Sam Antar, whitecollarfraud.com, he actually breaks this down how every single week you can track the real crime statistics and how crime is up. It's not a perception, it's a reality. But Eric Adams wants to bamboozle the public via the puppet police commissioner. I stated when she first was anointed police commissioner, when we first learned of this, on the Finest Unfiltered podcast with my friends John Macari and Eric Dim. And what did I state? I said she was a political hiree and that her moves will be minimal, like she hired a chief of staff, the same one that was her chief of staff for sanitation and also worked for her in her prior term in the NYPD, prior to her being the sanitation commissioner. So there's that one move. And then the police department's going to be run by, like I said, Tariq Shepard, John Schell, Jeffrey Madry, and Kaz Daughtry. Did anybody actually think Jessica Tisch would have a seat at the table? Her seat is at the very end of the table. And at the head of the table is Eric Adams. And at the right side of the table and the left side are the gentlemen I just mentioned. It's a good old boys club, and Jessica Tisch is not in it. But the move appeased big deal donors. And that's who Eric Adams needs to appeal to. He's got very expensive legal bills. He's got a big fight coming up in court. And also, he has now apparently become MAGA Eric. He had a press conference to remember. He's become very combative at these press conferences. And, we'll just say this about Eric Adams. So Eric Adams has complained about $6.4 billion being spent on illegal immigrants who have invaded New York City. But he continues to admit that he and his staff refuse to properly requisition for their spending. In comparison to other municipalities in this country, New York was initially given more than other states and cities. I believe the ballpark figure is 100 million. 100 million. Adams chose to exceed that threshold and refused to requisition because he wanted to engage in questionable procurement processes, like awarding no bid contracts, not accounting for spending and waste, and of course, where's my crumbs? So think about the requisition of these schemes, like the debit card scam with illegal immigrants. Remember that scam? Who got paid with that one? It's a sad day when you see these journalists that are like deliberately, I don't know, is it a form of liberalism? They're not asking what they should be asking because they keep going back to illegal immigrants and migrants, illegal immigrants and migrants. And we don't even have President Trump in office yet. There hasn't been any discussions with the border czar. It's just all conjecture. It's just, can we get back to asking questions that affect the taxpayers of New York City? Because this whole illegal immigrant and migrant crisis, it's moving along. You know that the federal government, it's changing hands now. It's in a different direction coming up, but there's still questions about Eric Adams and his administration. So the liberal press are the most egregious offenders. But the conservative outlets, they're not taking Eric to task either. And I can prove that with what I'm about to show you.
Those who are here committing crimes, robberies, shooting at police officers, raping innocent people, have been a harm to our country. I want to sit down and hear the plan on how we're going to address them. Those are the people I am talking about, and I would love to sit down with the board of czar and hear his thoughts on how we're going to address those who are harming our citizens.
You're open to that?
Open to
hearing what their plan is to deport some of these folks, and you think the city, in some circumstances, should cooperate with ICE.
Let me, you know what's interesting? And I was talking to the team the other day. I want you to all go back and Google Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. Google what they said about those who commit crimes in our city and what they said in our country. They said those who commit crimes need to get out right away. That was their position. So this is not a new position, because in the state of in the era of cancel culture, no one's afraid to be honest about the truth. Well, cancel me because I'm going to protect the people of this city. And if you come into this country, in this city, and think you're going to harm innocent New Yorkers and innocent migrants and asylum seekers, this is not the mayor you want to be in the city under.
Yeah, I don't know who this guy is. He's a journalist. I saw that the infamous DC Drano also reposted this video and said that Eric Adams is now free. DC Drano, I saw him at an event a long time ago. I don't know. He paraded around like a rooster. Can't just pet a rooster or talk to a rooster. So that's as much as I'll say about this guy. But he lives in Tampa. I don't know if he was ever trying any criminal case. But Eric Adams, the history of Eric Adams, he doesn't know it. And Eric, he's really a kleptocrat. People say that Eric Adams is a liberal. He's far from it. He's a kleptocrat who's just looking for the next grift. The conservative outlets and these MAGA Republicans, or whatever they want to call themselves, they don't know Eric Adams, especially if you're from Tampa or from Florida. Maybe you should do a little history. Maybe you should watch this show, all the episodes prior, watch The Finest Unfiltered, listen to Curtis Sliwa, follow Curtis Sliwa, listen to Sid Rosenberg in the morning on WABC Radio, and maybe you'll learn that Eric Adams is not the person he's projecting himself to be right now. And with that, let's go to the first clip and article in regards to this press conference. Mayor Adams wants migrants charged with crimes deported from NYC in major shift as he dares progressives to, quote, cancel me, end quote. This is by Haley Brown, Craig McCarthy, and Matt Troutman of the New York Post. Commit a crime, get deported before doing the time. Mayor Eric Adams said Tuesday that he's open to deporting migrants from New York City who have been charged with crimes, a shift from his past stance of waiting for convictions before shipping off immigrant criminals. Adams said he soon plans to meet with President-elect Donald Trump's new border czar, Tom Homan, on the incoming administration's plans to potentially deport accused migrant criminals. Quote, my position is people who commit crimes in our city, you have abdicated your right to be in our city, and I am open to figure out the best way to address that. End quote, he said. Quote, you got a guy, he's on camera shooting at a police officer. End quote, he said, referring to Bernardo Castro Mata, a 19-year-old from Venezuela who illegally crossed into the U.S. before allegedly shooting 2 NYPD officers. Quote, I don't want that guy in my city, plain and simple, end quote. He added, quote, those who are here committing crimes, robberies, shooting at police officers, raping innocent people have been a harm to our country, end quote. Hisner contended many progressives in this era of, quote, cancel culture, end quote, have been afraid to put their foot down on deporting criminal immigrants. Quote, cancel me because I'm going to protect the people of this city. end quote, he said. The mayor's newfound openness to hardline actions comes as the Big Apple, a city defined by the immigrant experience where the Statue of Liberty beckons, quote, huddled masses yearning to breathe free, end quote, braces for Trump's promised mass deportations and other crackdowns. Holman recently told the Post that he wants the incoming administration to withhold federal funding from sanctuary jurisdictions such as New York City. He has also warned that Big Apple leaders won't be able to stop the feds from deporting migrant criminals. Quote, if we can get assistance from New York City, we may have to double the number of agents we send to New York City, end quote. He said on Fox and Friends last month, quote, because we're going to do the job with or without you, end quote. Rather than fight Holman and Trump, Adams offered an olive branch, arguing the 2024 presidential election showed Americans want a change on immigration and the U.S. border. Quote, the American people heard it and voted for it, end quote, he said about Trump's promises to secure the border. He said he spoke with Holman Tuesday and soon will meet with the incoming border czar. Quote, I want to make clear, I'm not going to warring with this administration. I'm going to be working with this administration, end quote, he said. Quote, I'd like to speak with our border czar and find out what his plans are. Where our common grounds are, we can work together, end quote. Adams, a former NYPD captain, has publicly played, quote, good cop, bad cop, end quote, on immigration issues when even before Trump's electoral victory. He has pushed for compassion for the 200,000 migrants who flowed into New York City over recent years and presided, albeit begrudgingly, over $6.4 billion in spending for food, shelter, and other services. And Adams drew the line at deporting law-abiding undocumented immigrants and dreamers, such as his Commissioner of Immigrant Affairs, Manuel Castro, who crossed the U.S.-Mexico border as a 5-year-old. Quote, those people should not be rounded up in the middle of the night. He said, these are people who love our country and they're participating in our country, end quote. But Hisner has also repeatedly said to loosen the Big Apple's sanctuary city laws, specifically for working with U.S. immigration and customs enforcement when migrants are accused of serious crimes. When a reporter pointed out that Adams himself faces criminal charges, he contended there's a difference between his case and any migrant accused of crimes. Quote, first of all, I'm an American, said Adams, who has pled not guilty. Americans have certain rights. The Constitution is for Americans, and I'm not a person that snuck into this country. My ancestors have been here for a long time.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. So Vivek Ramaswamy tweeted the other day about there was Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yes.
He was tweeting about how the Pakistan International Airlines are leasing the Roosevelt Hotel, and the city is in a contract with them to house migrants there. So just wondering if you guys had an update there. Like, is the city under contract with the Pakistan government or any other Pakistan entities when it comes to housing migrants? And then second question for you, just looking for your reaction on the Hunter Biden pardon by President Joe Biden.
First, I think he was right in his tweet. It breaks my heart that we're spending this much money following the law where New York City requires us to do, and many people don't remember those first few months. We were getting those buses in the middle of the night. Zach Isco from OEM, Deputy Mayor Williams Isom, my chief of staff, we were responding in the middle of the night. We were getting 4,000 a week at one time. 8,000 every 2 weeks, 16,000 a month. And we were required in the beginning that by a certain time, we had to find housing for them. We had to have them, they had to be in a bed by a certain time. Until we had to go back and forth to court to fight that. But in those first few months, if you came in at 1 hour, you had to be inside a place by a certain hour. And we had to live up to that. And so when you saw, we had to find space wherever we could. We were in emergency status. We had to find a law. And so his tweet is the same thing I'm saying, that for the most part, that we shouldn't have to be paying this. This should not fall on the backs of New York City taxpayers. I've said this over and over again. So we see it as him, because he's going into the efficiency of government. This is inefficient. This is inefficient to do. And so I'm hoping he's going to examine all of the inefficiencies that we're seeing in government, because I came in with that same energy and spirit. We have been wasting taxpayers' money for far too long, and we need to stop wasting taxpayers' money. So his observation is the observation that I had, but we had no other choice but to do just that. What you were talking about, the Hunter Biden. Out of all of this, there's almost a level of irony to this all. I just want to bring out something. I'm going to read the front page of the New York Times. Okay? Let me find that sentence. President Biden and President-elect Donald Trump now agree on one thing. The Biden Justice Department has been politicized. Does that sound familiar? Rest my case.
I'd love to expand on that. You said in the Wall Street Journal the other day that you do believe that you were targeted because of your speaking up about migrants. Or I guess I want to ask, why do you think you were targeted? I believe that the Southern District has said that this investigation into your campaign began before you were mayor. It began in 2021, I believe they said. So, what would they be targeting? Or were they just chasing a lead and found something?
Listen, in all my life, I never had to have a level of discipline that I have right now. Nothing is more harmful and hurtful to have leaks come out, the assault on your character, and you have to sit back. There was this photo of Muhammad Ali when he was like, he had the arrows in him, he was like that. Do you know how much I want to respond to this stuff? I just want to respond to all of this that has unfolded for the last couple of months. And every day before I do off topics, my lawyer said, don't you do it. Because, I'm just a fighter. I believe in fighting for my rights. And this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life, of the onslaught of this. And I have to remain silent. And I can't answer and defend myself. That's the hardest thing. But life is kind. There's going to be an opportunity one day to really dig into all that has unfolded. But you cannot ignore the fact, because I know I read a little fast. President Biden and President-elect Donald Trump now agree on one thing. The Biden Justice Department has been politicized. Now, if this is in the New York Times, it has to be true.
President Biden might be helping you.
Next question, Monica.
So the first article was about the whole migrant crisis and how now Eric Adams is for deporting migrants. I just want to remind everybody once again, and you can watch this in prior episodes, Eric Adams campaigned that New York City was a sanctuary city. When those buses were coming to New York City full of migrants, he had people from his administration welcome the illegals off the bus to shake their hand. He was all for it because the migrant shelter contract started coming through, which is something that the Southern District of New York and Eastern District of New York is looking into, because Tim Pearson, his former aide, was involved with the migrant shelters and the contracts, aka where's my crumbs? So I guess the liberal media and the conservative media want to act like that never happened. It clearly did. Then he came on another press conference around October of 2023, and he said that New York City's official position is that the border is to remain open. Now, all of a sudden, because he was indicted, in my opinion, and that all his pals and cronies are in trouble with him, facing possible indictments and other things, he's now shifting like a snake shedding his skin to the position of we will now deport criminal illegal migrants. So first he was for, well, we can't deport everybody. Now he's shifting, saying, oh, the criminals, the illegals, if they're criminals, we don't want them here. And then originally he wanted it to be where it was a sanctuary city. Eric Adams is for and against every issue. He is a snake who's shedding his skin right in front of your eyes. Now, as far as the press conference, you heard those questions? Now let me read to you and show you the article from the journalist that actually asked him those questions. Biden's pardon is bolstering Eric Adams' legal defense. The mayor has echoed Trump in saying his indictment was politically motivated. This is by Jeff Colton of Politico. New York. Mayor Eric Adams has claimed that his federal indictment was retaliation for criticizing President Joe Biden's handling of immigration, a political assertion short on evidence. Now, Biden himself has given Adams evidence to point to. Literally, asked at a press conference Tuesday for his reaction to Biden pardoning his son, Hunter, Adams pulled a copy of the New York Times out from his lectern and read aloud from a front-page story. Quote, President Biden and President-elect Donald Trump now agree on one thing. The Biden Justice Department has been politicized, Adams read. Does that sound familiar? I rest my case, end quote, he added with a laugh. The line echoed Adams' own argument from a video he released in September when federal prosecutors in Manhattan indicted him on 5 criminal counts alleging he accepted bribes from Turkish interests in exchange for official favors. The mayor pled not guilty, and his attorney is pushing for an earlier trial date so as not to interfere with his re-election campaign. Quote, I always knew that if I stood my ground for New Yorkers that I would be a target, he said on the video, and a target I became, end quote. Adams' comment on the Times story Tuesday also echoed what he had told the Wall Street Journal in a column published Wednesday when asked if he thought the indictment was, quote, payback for his criticism of the party line on migrants, end quote. Quote, yes, I do, Adams responded. People were not happy with me. It doesn't have to be the president because there are a lot of other people unhappy that I fought for this city, end quote. The mayor is a moderate Democrat who at times seems more comfortable aligning with Republicans than left of center politicians in his own party. His political proclivities have been underscored by anger toward Biden and a kinship with Trump over a shared narrative of persecution from the political elites. Adams has rarely shown his cards so clearly as he did with the Journal. Over the past 13 months since the federal investigation became public, Adams has typically been measured in his statements. He let his surrogates, including Trump as of late, make the politicized prosecution argument for him. But not fighting back is against the mayor's nature. Quote, in all my life, I've never had to have the level of discipline that I have right now. Nothing is more harmful and hurtful than to have leaks come out, the assault on your character, and you have to sit back. End quote, because his lawyers have told him not to engage. Adams then compared himself to the iconic 1968 photo of Muhammad Ali posing an Esquire as St. Sebastian punctured with arrows. Quote, I believe in fighting for my rights, and this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life, he said. The onslaught of this, and I have to remain silent, end quote. It was an artful dodge. The mayor was responding to a question about how he could say the indictment came in response to criticizing the Biden administration when prosecutors from the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York said that they had opened the investigation in 2021, 2 years before Adams attacked the White House. But Adams found a way to respond, pulling out the Times again and reading the sentence again. Quote, President Biden and President-elect Donald Trump now agree on one thing. The Biden Justice Department has been politicized, he said. Now you know if this is in the New York Times, it has to be true. End quote, he added with a laugh. It wasn't the only time on Tuesday that Adams, a Democrat, embraced Trump's talking points. The Democratic mayor has played nice with the Republican president-elect and praised him for responding to Americans' concerns about immigration. Adams also talked about how the price of his Bitcoin has risen, praised Elon Musk's plan for government efficiency, and decried, quote, cancel culture, end quote, for making Democrats afraid to say they want to deport immigrants without legal status who commit crimes. Quote, well, cancel me, Adams said, because I'm going to protect the people of the city, end quote. So as you just heard and you read on the screen, Eric Adams is now seeking to somehow get some help from the MAGA crowd. Eric is now taking some staunch positions, saying that now he's believing in deporting criminal illegal aliens. I didn't hear that 6 months ago. I didn't hear that even 2 months ago. He's also saying how Elon Musk is great. President Trump won, and we have to now accept this. Now I'm all for trying to come together, but just people need to go back and realize Eric Adams is not a political victim. The investigation started in 2021, prior to him winning his primary. And why is that? Because he was the Brooklyn Borough president committing crimes. What are those crimes? Well, he was currying favor with Turkish officials or foreign entities, we'll say, and then he conveyed all of this stuff from Turkish straw donors and stole $10 million in public matching funds. He took $10 million from you, the taxpayers. While this is going on, now under his watch and his police department, somehow he has executives and others involved in a nightclub extortion racket. Remember, Eric Adams was the party all the time mayor. And he was out partying in places like Con Sofrito with some real dirtbags. And, well, whatever happened to that? I think that's still under investigation. And there was a victim who had a nightclub himself in Coney Island and has evidence of this and went to a grand jury. But I thought it was all political. So before you get caught, this guy, you get caught up in him using big words, apparently, in MAGA world, like cancel culture, and he's, quote, based. Review your history and look up what's really going on. Because the charlatan will come and chew you up and spit you out. And that's what Eric Adams is. And if you fall for this, there is no recovery in New York City because he's going to finish it off. And in fact, I'm going to applaud my friend and put up his post on X in regards to the events that occurred at this press conference. A wild press conference. Eric Adams now is turning into a staunch conservative, allegedly, according to some in the MAGA world, apparently. But let me put this up. Here's an X post by my friend Curtis Sliwa. Eric Adams is trying to reinvent himself to stay in power. No one is fooled. Today he claims crime is down by 5.7%. Do any of you feel your neighborhood is safer? We all know Adams is a disgrace. The city is still a mess because of his failures. The same mayor who told us crime is a, quote, perception, end quote, now wants to pretend like he's, quote, combating, end quote, crime. Adams has done nothing to add more NYPD officers in our streets and subways as they continue to face a shortage. Adams refused to work with ICE until he saw there are 56,000 criminal illegal migrants in taxpayer-funded shelters. Adams welcomed every dangerous migrant and gave the multi-billion-dollar contracts to his corrupt friends. all while the city faces a violent epidemic. Today, we have more violence in every borough and less crimes being reported. Why won't Adams name and shame any of the radical district attorneys releasing repeat offenders back on the streets? Do not believe anything Eric Adams says. He is desperate. The only person who feels safe in New York City is you, Eric Adams. All while our city is suffering. We will not go back. Curtis has it right. The MAGA Republican crowd that's on social media, some that are now, I guess, in Tampa and think they know what's going on in the world of Eric Adams in New York City. Also, the politicians themselves in New York City. A lot of this has to do with who's in charge right now. Obviously, the governor, obviously, state assembly, the state senate, city council, who have completely failed public safety in the state and the city. They've failed on a lot of different issues, but you do have Republicans that are elected in office. And I commend one in particular, New York City City Councilwoman Joanne Ariola, but that is the star right now, I believe, as far as the city and state slate of Republicans that are in office. And you have to ask yourselves what's really going on. I see a district attorney's race right now in Manhattan where Alvin Bragg should absolutely have a challenger. By the way, there's a lot of seats you'll see that are running unopposed, and they're Democrat as the incumbent. What's going on there? You know, New York City, New York State has always been, I guess, the default position, as former Mayor Rudy Giuliani once stated, is corrupt. That's the default position of New York. But man, as it tilted into corrupt times 20. And people need to really do some soul searching, including Republicans as well, because, you know, look around you. Look at who is standing with who. And never judge someone by their words. Judge them by their actions. Now, I'm about to read and put up on the screen a story about my friend. And this is something that I thought conservatives cared about. But apparently it was only written in one major outlet, and there have been no other questions about this. And this is going back to the time when this mandate was put in place and continued under the Eric Adams administration. So let me put this article up on the screen and read it to you. This is from Kathy Ann Boniello from the New York Post. Veteran NYPD cop claims COVID vaccine mandate targeted male Christian officers. A veteran NYPD lieutenant turned podcaster claims the department refused to give Christian men exemptions from the COVID-19 vaccine mandate because a DEI commissioner wanted to put more women on the force. John Macari, who co-hosts the New York's Finest Retired and Unfiltered podcast, said he had to choose between his Christian faith and his job because of policies put forth by the city's now disgraced COVID czar Jay Varma and former NYPD Deputy Commissioner of Equity and Inclusion Tanya Meisenholder. Meisenholder once said in a podcast that more than 10% of NYPD employees are, quote, knuckle draggers, end quote, which Macari claimed is a discriminatory term for men. The two, quote, were responsible for Macari being told that he either had to get vaccinated or be terminated. That was not done to female officers, transsexual officers, and those officers of no faith, end quote, Macari alleged in a $10 million Manhattan Supreme Court lawsuit. Quote, living as a devout and God-fearing Christian, end quote, kept him from being vaccinated, Macari contended in court papers. Macari said he left the NYPD in February 2022 after 18 years on the job. He, quote, suffered severe emotional distress, including anxiety and bouts of depression when he was forced to choose between violating the sanctity of his body and his soul through the illegal and forceful coercion and staying on the job that he loved, end quote, he said in the legal filing. Meisenholder's personal effort to increase the number of women in American police departments, known as the 30 by 30 initiative, gave her, quote, a strong interest in changing the accommodation process and keeping male police officers out of work while granting female police officers the same accommodation just to help foster her discriminatory results, end quote, according to the lawsuit. She left the NYPD in August 2023 after 16 years and now serves as the director of Gender Equity Policing Project for New York University School of Law, according to LinkedIn. Earlier this year, Macari proclaimed department brass warned the rank and file not to listen to his show, which is often critical of the NYPD's bureaucracy. The NYPD declined comment on the lawsuit. Varma could not be reached. Meisenholder did not immediately respond to a message seeking comment. Bravo, John Macari. My good friend John, bravo. I find it odd that we don't see many major outlets covering this. We also don't hear from MAGA or conservative influencers or people of quote interest. It's very odd. But with that being said, I know that there are people like New York City Councilwoman Joanne Ariola that are very happy right now about this lawsuit. And you know something? In the recent past, many lawsuits were filed, some that ended up winning. And then, of course, the city, the institution, challenged. And they went to the appeals process, which I think will be drawn out over years. The reason is, if one person is successful, all will be successful. In total, there's about 2,000 people that left their job, what they loved, because of a mandate. Now, you could say, you should have sucked it up. You should have done this. You should have done that. I believe if somebody believes in something like religion, if they are very religious and that religion is what they believe in, and in that, their faith, they can't find it in themselves to take something that was experimental, especially at the time, but to inject their body with something. Who are you to judge them? And in the end, did any of this even make sense? And did any of it even work? So I am one to lean towards, I think these people will be successful at some point. It will be a long, drawn-out process. There are many, many battles to fight in this case, but I think John has excellent evidence, excellent stuff to bring forward, especially that deputy commissioner calling people knuckle draggers. My God. So, this is going to be one for the record books. I expect this to be, might be a few years, but in the end, remember, when one is successful all the way at the top, thousands more will follow. Is it really worth it for the city of New York to continue to fight these? Well, the taxpayers should make that decision because it's ultimately the taxpayers that are held responsible. Back pay, full benefits, and a return to work? Or do we continue fighting this if you're the city of New York because you're protecting the institution because you can't admit that you were wrong? So that's what you're facing. Is it worth fighting or worth reinstating and compensating everyone? We'll see. I think they're going to try to protect the institution for as long as they can. We've already heard President-elect Trump. He said for anybody that had to leave the military for that very purpose, he's going to reinstate and compensate. So, don't know what to say for the first indicted mayor of New York City, but man, some people really, like I said, have to do some soul searching. You have district attorney races that are running with unopposed incumbents because Republicans in the city are busy doing what? I don't know. And I'm talking about major players major clubs or whatever you want to call it, politicians or so-called politicians themselves. We need to fix this city and come together. Republicans are actually trending in the right direction in New York and New York City. We'll see. They need to get their act together. And maybe it takes somebody who's heroic and brave like John Macari to rally the troops to the cause. So with that being said, if you liked what you just saw and you're listening or watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the notification button. If you're on Rumble, hit the subscribe button, hit the Rumble button. And if you're listening on any major podcast streaming platform, please give it a like, give it a follow, and share it out. And soon, I'll be back with more, like I always am. And I wish everybody a good day. Remember, this Friday, there's going to be the highlight semifinals. So go to the @Highlight Network on YouTube. Follow the @Highlight League on Instagram. You can see all the updates. This is the fastest sport in the world. And I suggest you watch or listen to the upcoming semifinals on Friday night, December the 6th. With that being said, I bid adieu. So good morning, good afternoon, good night.